For the last 18 months, the most expensive question in the Indian markets has been 3 words long. Where is ours? Where is our Nvidia? Where is our OpenAI? We sat and watched a handful of American companies at trillions of dollars in value on the promise of machine intelligence, and we watched our own IT index, the thing that was supposed to be a proxy for all things digital India, go quietly sideways. The trade of the decade arrived. It crested. It moved on. And the largest pool of software talent on the planet was, at the level of listed equity, mostly just a spectator. It stung, and honestly, it should have. So today, I want to take you somewhere completely different. Not to a screen, but to the floor of a factory. I'm Karnik Shah, and this is Inflection Point Research. Let me get the housekeeping out of the way first, because it matters. I'm a SEBI-registered research analyst, and nothing discussed in this video is investment advice. I hold positions in several of the companies that I'm going to be talking about, and these are all being discussed for informational and educational purposes. Please do your own due diligence or consult with an investment advisor before making any investment decisions. Here's the argument, and I'll say it plainly. You can decide right now whether this video is worth your next 20 minutes. While the rest of the world spent 18 months pricing the ability to think, India spent the same time relearning something older and less glamorous, the ability to make. And I believe the theme of the next decade is not consumption in India, India manufacturing for the world. Let me show you why I think that, and let me show you the companies that are actually doing this. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, because I thought it too. We have had the Make in India slogan for over a decade, and there's not much to show for it. So why is it different this time? The honest answer is that this time the numbers finally moved. In the year to March 2026, India's own defense factories produced a record 1.78 lakh crore rupees of hardware. That's up close to 16% in a single year, and more than double of what it was just 5 years ago. And here's the part that stops me every time. They exported 38,000 crore rupees of it, up almost 63% year on year, and exported to more than 80 countries. A decade ago, the same export number was 686 crore. That's not a typo. 686 crore. We have gone from a rounding error to a genuine exporter of defense hardware within a 10-year time frame. And because this channel is built on honesty, let me honestly give you the other side of the coin immediately. On the same data, India is the second largest arms importer in the world. We are building the capability and buying the capability at the same time. Building the thing is not the same as having built it. And hold this tension in your head, because we're going to come back to it. And it is the difference between a serious investor and a cheerleader. Now, let me give you the single idea that ties this entire video together. Because if you get this one idea, everything else will fall into place. Every big investment trade has one scarce resource sitting at the center of it. In the AI trade, that scarce resource was compute. Not intelligence, not data, not talent, all of which were abundant everywhere. The bottleneck was the physical ability to train these enormous models, so the money pool at the single narrowest point in the chain, the companies that make the chips. So what is the scarce resource in Indian manufacturing? Here's the thing, it's not a factory. Factories can be built. It's not labor. Labor is abundant, and in India, it is cheap. It isn't even the machinery, most of which you can import from Germany or Japan. The scarce resource is indeed qualification. Let me explain what I mean, because this is the whole game. Qualification is the specific documented multi-year process by which a demanding customer comes to trust that your part will not fail. It's an aircraft maker auditing your shop floor for 3 years before your first component ever flies. It's a foreign drug regulator walking through your plant and issuing zero observations. It's a global grid company putting your equipment through a test lab that costs more than small companies' entire net worth. Qualification is slow and expensive. And this is the important bit. It cannot be rushed with money. You can throw $1 billion and still have to wait. And then once you finally have it, it becomes incredibly sticky because your customers' cost of switching away from you is exactly as high as your cost was to get in. That is the moat. It sits underneath every single company I'm going to name today. And when I tell you about a company forging turbine blades or shipping winding wire to 24 countries or running drug molecules for clients, it isn't even allowed to name. I'm telling you about the same asset wearing different clothes. Somebody spent years earning trust that a competitor now has to spend years to earn too. And three forces are pushing the world's demand for that trust towards India all at the same time, which is exactly why this is a decade and not a quarter. The first is China plus one. This has gone from a slide in a consultant's presentation to an actual line in a procurement manager's budget. Every serious global buyer now wants a supplier who is not in China, and the list of countries that can actually do precision work at scale is very short. And India is on that list. The second is India's own policy, which for once is all pointing the same way. Production-linked incentives across electronics and pharma, and positive indigenization lists, which is a polite phrase for the government simply banning import of certain items and forcing a domestic supply chain to exist. The third is the sheer physical capex happening right now. The grid build-out, the rearmament, the data centers, the physical economy is spending, and all of that spending needs things made. So now that we have the three tailwinds together and a runway measured in years instead of quarters, let me walk you through what I think of the four things India has quietly learned to make. Four physical objects, and each one stands in for an entire value chain. The first object is a circuit board. For years, the Indian electronics story was a screwdriver story. Import the parts, snap them together, slap Make in India on the box, and capture almost nothing. That version is real, and it bores me. What I care about is the layer just above it, where the company owns the design or the qualification or both. And the customer isn't a price shopping brand. It's an aircraft or a missile or a hospital scanner that literally cannot afford to fail. Cient DLM builds electronics for aerospace, defense, and medical devices. Avalon Technologies is a full-stack manufacturer with a real United States footprint alongside its Indian plants, which matters enormously because it's exactly the non-China address a global buyer is desperate for. Rossell, Texas builds the wire harnesses, the actual nervous system that runs through the military aircraft and is scaling very fast. And then two names that sit right on the border between electronics and defense. Astra Microwave, which makes the radio frequency gut of radars and seekers, and Data Patterns, which designs radar and avionics in-house with those kind of margins that quietly tell you it owns the intellectual property rather than just assembling someone else's. And standing behind them all is Bharat Electronics, the state-owned giant. Now, BEL is not a hidden small cap, and it is not the point of the video, but it is the benchmark. And very often, it's the customer. When a small private supplier qualifies into a program that BEL already serves, it is stepping into a supply chain the state has already validated. That's why it belongs in the picture. Object number two is the forged part. And this is exactly where India has built something genuinely remarkable, almost without anyone noticing. MTAR Technologies works at tolerances of 5 to 10 microns. That's a fraction of the width of a human hair on parts where failure is simply not an option. Rocket engines for the space program, assemblies for the core of a nuclear reactor, hydrogen and fuel cell components for marquee American customers. This is a company whose entire existence is basically one long qualification certificate. Then there's Azad Engineering, which forges the blades that spin inside the world's energy and aerospace turbines, and it is a qualified supplier to exactly the global giants whose approval cycle takes years to earn. Sansera is the pivot story, an auto components business deliberately climbing out of cyclical paths into the higher, stickier world of aerospace and defense. TD Power Systems is the quiet compounder, generators and alternators shipped all over the world with very little noise. And then OBSE Perfection, which I'm going to flag honestly because that's the job. It's small, it trades on the SME platform with different risks and liquidity constraints. Its core today is still a domestic auto, and defense ambitions are real, but mostly in the future tense. It's a qualification story that fully hasn't happened yet. That can be an opportunity, but it is not the same as the proven names next to it, and I won't pretend like it is. The third object is the molecule. India has been the pharmacy of the world for a generation. The interesting shift is up the value chain from making cheap finished generics to running the hard chemistry that innovators and regulated markets cannot easily do themselves. And here, the auditor is a foreign drug regulator, which means an unblemished inspection record is worth almost more than any patient. Synoris plays the US complex generics contract manufacturing game. Shilpa Medicare is the oncology complex formulation specialist. Sai Life Sciences is a pure contract research and manufacturing organization, taking drug molecule all the way from the discovery bench to commercial supply for the client it isn't usually allowed to name. Acuta's Chemicals, which used to be called Ami Organics, is the fascinating hybrid because on top of its pharma intermediates, it's pushing into genuinely strategic specialty chemistry, including semiconductor-grade photoresist and additives for batteries. And VR Scientific spans both human and animal health, with plants that already reach into Turkey, Brazil, Spain, and Germany. And here's where I want to widen the lens on purpose, because the molecule story does not stop at medicine. The same skill, the same process chemistry, the same China plus tailwind is turning India into the world's outsourced contract chemist. Two names I hold in this are the Pharma Labs, which straddles with intermediates and active ingredients, and Privy Specialty Chemicals, which makes the aroma and fragrance molecules for the world's big consumer good companies. A quiet, high barrier corner where a handful of global houses buy from a handful of qualified suppliers, and India has earned a seat at that table. Whether the end product is a cancer drug, a fabric softener, or a battery, India is increasingly where the hard synthesis actually happens. The fourth object is the transformer. I did a deep dive on India's power grid back in March, so I'll keep this tight. The point that matters here is that the grid build-out isn't only a domestic story. It's an export story because the world needs grid iron and India now makes it. Quality Power makes the HVDC and FACTS coils that, by its own count, no other Indian company makes at 220 kilovolts and above, and it supplies global integrators themselves. KSH International makes the winding wire that goes inside the very largest transformers, and it already exports to 24 countries. And Atlanta Electricals, which only listed last September, now builds transformers up to the 765 kilovolt class and has started exporting to the United States and Gulf. So there they are, the four objects: the circuit board, the forged part, the molecule, and the transformer. If you take one screenshot from this entire video, take this table in the written piece also, because it lays down all of the 21 companies, what each one makes, and the last column whether I personally own it. And what you notice is that I own most of these companies. This is not an accident. That's the whole reason I do this research and this work. Now the part that separates the real research from the sales pitch, everything that could go wrong, aka the risks. We are still net importers, and badly. The record production number and the still second largest importer number are both true at the same time. Programs still slip, deliveries still disappoint. Secondly, and this is a big one, the market already sees a lot of this. These are not undiscovered stocks. Many of them trade at valuations that already price in years of flawless execution. A wonderful business can still be a poor investment if you pay the wrong price for it, and I want you to hold both those thoughts in your head at once. Qualifications cut both ways. The same sticky, slow approvals that protect these companies also makes their revenue lumpy and project-based. It lands when a customer's program lands, not when a spreadsheet wants it to. So expect noisy quarters and don't confuse a timing gap for a broken business. Lastly, governance and working capital. Vary by name, and as one of these, as I already said, is an SME listing with a completely different risk profile, which is exactly why the next step is a proper forensic dossier on each one and not just a blanket thumbs up from me today. And there's also one omission that you've probably noticed. I didn't talk about semiconductors. I did not make this a semiconductor story, even though semiconductors are the loudest Make in India headline out of all. That was a deliberate choice, not an oversight. The part of the chip chain that India is currently entering, which is assembly, packaging, and testing, sits low in the value chain, and the high-value fabrication, the part where the real money is made, looks likely to stay dominated by our East Asian peers for many years to come. Until I see a credible path for an Indian-listed company to actually climb that stack rather than sit in the basement, I would much rather own the precision, the chemistry, the electronics, where India already has a genuine, defensible, and qualified position. The day that path appears, I'll change my mind. For now, I'm watching and not buying. So what am I actually watching from here, and what am I tracking? I'm watching the defense export run rate and whether it keeps climbing towards that 50,000 crore rupee revenue target that the government has set for the end of this decade. I'm also watching drug regulator inspection outcomes for the pharma names which I'm tracking, because a clean audit is a moat renewal and a bad one is a thesis event. I'm watching the order awards in power equipment at home and for export. I'm watching for real China plus one contract wins actually showing up in the export mix and not just in press releases. And I'm watching whether some of these incentive schemes genuinely pay out rather than just get announced, because that gap is historically where India's industrial policy goes to disappoint. And here finally is where I land on all of it. The AI trade rewarded whoever had the scarcest input, which was compute. This trade, I think, will reward whoever owns the scarcest capability, which is the qualified supplier the world cannot easily replace. That's a slower fortune than the one the American megacaps minted over the last 18 months, but I'd argue it's a far more durable one. We did not miss a decade. We were quietly building the thing the next decade is going to need. Read the capability before you read the ticker. That is genuinely the entire game. And with that, I'd like to conclude this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you gained something valuable for your own investment journey. I'll see you guys at the next inflection point. Thank you.